this sets a precedent. If y'all have ever been in court, judges often ask, okay, well, what is there any case law to support your stance? Now there is. So basically, these two journalists in North Carolina, in Asheville of all places, were arrested on Christmas Day.
Because the cops are especially nice on Christmas Day.
Well, and this goes back, like, this is the idea we've covered before. Like, you do shit on days when people aren't going to pay attention, right? The cops were hoping that nobody was going to come to this forced eviction of unhoused folks that were sleeping in a park in Asheville. And so they did it on Christmas Day, because what could be more in celebration of the Christmas spirit than forcing a bunch of unhoused people to get up and move on Christmas?
Yeah.
So these two journalists go to cover it. They are then arrested and continuously assert that they are press, that they are covering the story, therefore they have a right to be there.
Now, for those of you who don't know, in America, that's supposed to be legal.
Like, that is the First Amendment.
You're allowed to report on what the cops are doing.
Or anybody.
Or anybody in
right.
public.
Like, you are, as a reporter, you have the right to report on shit happening. That's what the name is, right? So you can hear more of the details. I just did another interview with them over at projectcensored.org. But basically, they had a bench trial where they were found guilty, which is horrifying. But then they appealed, and then there was a jury trial. The jury trial ended, and they were found guilty.
Of trespassing.
Of trespassing, which should not be applicable when they're journalists. Because if that were the case, then journalists would be kept out of so many situations and so many places where reporting is necessary. And Reporters Without
Borders... The cops
Borders,
could just grab anybody, any reporter at any event and say you're trespassing.
Reporters Without Borders pointed out in a statement, Matilda Bliss and Veronica Coit have been convicted of breaking a curfew in a public park, by the way, by being there after dark, but the sun does not set on the First Amendment. Journalists not only have the right to gather news when and where it is occurring, but they have a professional obligation to act as watchdogs on government actors. The ruling is very disappointing and will set back press freedom in North Carolina. But I would also like to point out, it's not just about North Carolina, because as Veronica pointed out in the interview that I just did with them, this sets a precedent. If y'all have ever been in court, judges often ask, okay, well, what is there any case law to support your stance? Now there is. There is case law that shows, well, yes, Your Honor, back in 2021 in Asheville, North Carolina, these two journalists, so-called, were arrested for trespassing, and that they were found guilty.
Held up in court.
Okay, great. So we'll use that as precedent. There is now case law that supports this railroading of the First Amendment. And that can be used in any fucking court, in anywhere, any place in this country.
And it also shows that cops, at least in this event, in this scenario, are now deciding who they feel is really a reporter.
Right.
Okay, maybe CNN's reporters, but if you show up and you're reporting for some indie magazine, then we can just arrest you because you're not a real reporter. And so now cops are deciding who gets to be a reporter, which is really fascism.
Absolutely. And judges and magistrates, all of these people get to decide that an adversarial press, it does not count. And by the way, this is a point that I've made in a recent article as well, that you only have free press if you have an adversarial press. Because if you have a press that just agrees with the fucking powers that be, you don't have journalists. You don't have a free press. So this basically means that the concept of free press will not hold up in court as identified by these court cases in Asheville, North Carolina, and that's terrifying.
So as they appeal this, I hope people will support them, and if similar shit is going on in your area, I hope you support those journalists that continue to report on all of the wrongs that this police state does.